Here is a video we've put together to thank all you carers for the fantastic work you do. Thank you.
We are so thankful for all our carers. It's not unnoticed how much you do. Out on the front line, always helping others. We are so very proud of you.
Through all the worries that we are facing,
you keep on going, striving through.
You help move hurdles, promote self-worth and growth.
Drive and focus in all you do.
All I'm grateful to all our caring. It's not unnoticed what you do. Out on the front line, giving your precious time, commitment and dedication too.
You are a lifeline, a ray of sunshine. Your worth is priceless, that is true. We celebrate with pride your selfless caring side. Our first thanks are sent to you.
In our foster family we have 10 pets. They are 3 Westies, Saffron, Belle and Beau, 5 tortoises, Herbie and Bernadette, Amy and Sheldon and Penny, and we have the 2 rabbits who are Poppy and Daisy. And the fact that there is several dogs I find really helps, because we've got several children and everybody can have a cuddle at the same time and everybody can get that attention really. The children that we've had and young people that we've had have often spent more time with the dogs initially, because you can have a chat if you want to chat, you don't get quizzed, you don't get asked anything, and they're just lovely company. So this is what we call the den, and it's our semi-independent room, but this goes down really well. It's got its own entrance, it's got its own set of rules. It is somewhere to practice being independent but safely. We're all in the house, they've got access to the house all the time. I've got a key for the den as well, so it's still one home, but this is a separate area for privacy. We've got rooms in the house for younger, under 16-year-olds. This is probably my favourite and most important thing, and it's our welcome book. So we don't really discuss this book, it's just left on the child's bed and in their own time they just go through it. But what is so important to me, because it introduces our family, there's photographs of everybody that's in our house and a little bit about them as well, what things they like, how old they are. And I think that it's, in the early days, it can be so daunting and it's like, who am I with? And it's actually really nice to have a little bit of an explanation, and they also can create talking points. Because food and meals are such a high anxiety area for nearly all of the children that we've had, I like them to know what's coming, and I like them to be able to plan and not worry about their evening meal. So we have a Monday to Friday system, and on Sunday I'll plan out what we're going to have, and they simply just tick their name if they want it. And I have found that since we've introduced this system, I'm not getting asked at breakfast what's for tea, because children were obviously concerned, they were asking the question, and it's there, they open it up, and it's really lovely because spaghetti bolognese always goes down really well, and on Sunday you can hear the little whispers, I can't wait till Wednesday. Before a new foster child comes to join our family, it is an anxious time, but I would say it's more exciting than anything else, and we've got a lot of trust in the county council for matching us to the right placement. So before that child arrives, we don't question, are they right for us, because we're confident that they will be. I would say to people thinking about fostering to ring the local authority and ask as many questions as you can. When I tell people I'm a foster carer, a lot of people immediately say, I've thought about that, or I want to do that, and haven't and I'll always question, well, why did you not make that call, or why did you stop? And it's often a fear that could be just, I don't know what the word is. it could just be resolved so quickly, and sometimes just asking questions and makes you realise that the things you're worried about aren't really there, or you can speak to somebody that's experienced it and gone through it, and have come out the other side and think, actually no, it is a really rewarding thing to do. I can't see myself doing anything different.
Skull! My name is Magnus, chieftain of the Viking tribes of Pearlthorpe. You can't come to us now, but you can invite me into your school to teach your children about the Norse lands, my people, and where we came from. I will tell them of the land that we travelled from to the land that we travelled to, but more importantly, who we beat up when we got there, the weapons that we used, the jobs that we used to do, and the clothes we wore. So part of the day, when I come out to your schools, your children will get the opportunity to take part in some activities. One is making their own piece of Viking-inspired jewellery. Children taught how to make jewellery from a very early age. The other one is using their shields to get their arm nice and strong to protect against any Saxon invasion. I'll also be bringing out with me a traditional quern to show the children how we would grind our wheat into flour to make our flatbread. If you want lots outdoors in your school, send a parchment to Pearlthorpe and we'll arrange the visit of Magnus and one of my Norse tribespeople to come to your school.
I'm Gemma and this is my husband Paul, and we're both foster carers. I think initially we were a little bit anxious ourselves about going to panel. It sounded quite scary, but it wasn't at all. It was just a really friendly chit chat with a group of people around a table. It was more of a celebration really of us being there and of us, you know, wanting to become foster carers. The County Council offer a fair rate of pay, so we get paid dependent on our level of experience. So after you've done it for a while, then your level of pay will go up based on your experience and level of training that you've done. We've also got a network hub, which is a foster carer support group, and it's just an informal get-together. We feel so valued as a foster carer for Nottinghamshire County Council. Everyone's so caring and wants what's best for you as a family. The matching process is really careful, so they listen to our needs, and you know, they would never think of placing a child that wouldn't fit in our environment. As a foster family, we try and just make it everyday normal life, try and bring some stability and love to that child that's staying with us, and give them experiences that perhaps they've not experienced before. We love going out on day trips together, and for example today we've come pony trekking. Nottinghamshire's a great place to foster because we've got so much on our doorstep. There's so much that we can do. I feel really lucky that we're able to foster here.
HS2 is so important to the Midlands because we need to get our goods and services, our people to be where they need to be in the fastest possible time. We live in a fast-moving world with different economies moving at different paces. We can't afford to be left behind. If we get left behind, we'll continue to be a low-wage economy, and that's not fair. It's really important for the people who live here, and it's more important still for the generation to come.
So, right, thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Before we begin this meeting, I would like to ask my chaplain, the Reverend Elizabeth Murray, to lead us in prayer. Hello, Liz. Nice to see you.
Hello, good to see you, Stuart. And thank you for inviting me back as chair, because as chaplain, because I was chaplain to Sue Saddington. So we begin in prayer. Heavenly Father, we gather together today, separated, yet as one council. We pray for those who cannot be with us through different circumstances. As we deliberate, we ask that your hand will guide us as we debate concerns for those whom we serve. And we pray we serve to the best of our ability and in graciousness. We give ourselves and our guidance to you today. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Liz. Thank you very much. Well, can I welcome you all to the full council meeting, which is being held remotely, and the majority of the members of this council are joining in the meeting from their own homes. I am Councillor Stuart Wallace, and I am the chairman of the County Council. A quorum for the meeting is 17, and I can confirm that we are at that quorate numbers. In addition to the numbers of this council, we also have a number of officers at the meeting today, including the Chief Executive, Anthony May, and the Monitoring Officer, Marjorie Toward. Moving on then, please, to the minutes. The minutes have been circulated to you in your blue books. Can I ask the council to give me approval to sign the last minutes? Anyone against? I'll assume otherwise you're all for. Okay then, thank you. I will sign the minute book. Moving then to item 2, which is apologies for absence. And I'll ask the member group to confirm whether or not they have any apologies. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, we have no apologies. We're all present.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Good morning, Chairman. We have no apologies.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor D will be joining the meeting, but she is just in another meeting at the moment, so she's hoping to be in very shortly.
Okay.
Councillor Drosny is having connectivity issues at the moment, so he will be in and out of the meeting throughout the day.
Okay, fine. I have to say to you, I personally can hardly hear you, so I don't know whether you have a technical problem as well.
No, didn't hear any of that, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Okay.
Is that any better?
That's a lot better. Yes. Would you like to say it again, because nobody else heard you?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Deakin will be joining us shortly. She's just currently caught up in another meeting, and Councillor Zadrozny is having connectivity issues today, so he'll be on as soon as he can, but he might be in and out throughout the day.
Okay, thank you. That's a good, strong voice from you, so thank you very much for that. Moving then to item 3, which is declarations of interest. If any councillor or officer has either a disclosable pecuniary interest or private interest in any matter on the agenda, you should declare it now. Please raise your hand if you have an interest to declare. When called to speak, you should state whether or not it's a disclosable pecuniary interest or private interest and give your brief details. Do we have any notifications of interest? Okay, thank you. Obviously, during the day, if suddenly you realise by what's being said in the council, simply indicate to me and we can deal with that at the time. Right, moving on swiftly on to Chairman's business. I'm slightly sorry I don't have a list of things that we've managed to achieve. Given that the virus has made it still almost impossible to get sort of groups or get out to groups. But we are in discussions with the different groups within our own authority, by which we can actually get, using this technology, get me and council assistants into their meetings. So that's one way we're trying to develop it. Secondly, we are trying to get a system set up with the registrar's office so that people who are becoming British citizens at the moment have a one-to-one, face-to-face discussion, etc., oath-taking with the registrar's office. Again, we're going to try and bring the technology in so that we are, or the chairman or vice chairman, and someone from the Lord Lieutenant's office can also be in there virtually. So we're going to try and develop on that. Can I say again that I do implore you that if you have any issues that you would like either myself, council assistants, or the office to try and do, or ideas that we can actually promote the council, please come back to me. I'm always open to your comments. And finally, which you'll all want to know, is that we'll be having lunch. Lunch will be 30 minutes, and I would take it around about 12:30. So if you're going to have a large buffet, you know when to start to cook.
Mr. Chairman, might I just tell you I am having difficulty. You are breaking up quite regularly. I don't know whether anybody else has got the same problem, but you are breaking up.
Okay. I'm getting head shaking, so I'm assuming.
Yes. Councillor Dobson, we'll just ask ICT to give you a ring and see if we can sort out the problem. It sounds like it may be at your end in terms of what you're hearing, so
okay,
we'll give you a ring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move then on to item 5, which is constituency issues. None have been notified to us, and so I shall move to then presentations of petitions, item 6. I've been notified of 11 petitions by the deadline. May I remember members that there is 1 minute time limit for the presentation of each petition, and there is a maximum time limit for the 15 minutes for the whole of the 11 to be handed in. Just for people's information, but we'll go through it as we go along, is I have a copy of everyone's petitions already. So the speaker will mention his, I'll identify that we've got them, and then we can move on from that one. Okay? So the first one would be Councillor Philip Owen.
Thank you, Chairman. I think to hold up my petition, I can see it's not coming through very well on the screen. I don't know why that is. It's disappearing into the River Trent on my shot, but I can assure you I've got it here. It is actually a petition by way of a survey from residents on Newdigate Street at Kimberley. Newdigate Street is a fairly narrow street, and it dates from the turn of the century, the properties, many of which do not have off-street parking. It's close to the town centre, and there is a lot of extraneous parking, which makes it difficult for residents to park either outside or near to their own house. So a resident on Newdigate Street has organised a petition survey, and 28 out of the 30 replies indicate the desire for a residents' parking scheme to be introduced. I think this is eminently sensible because further along on the opposite side of the main road running through Kimberley on James Street, we have just introduced a residents' parking scheme for the top end there. So this would be a comparable one. So I urge the Chairman of Communities and Place to look at this petition very seriously, and hopefully he will be able to return in the not too distant future to me with some very good and positive news about the introduction of a residents' parking scheme. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Eloquent as always. I accept your petition. Moving on to the next one, which is Councillor Fielding, which regarding a memorial at Gateford Road in Worksop.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
This was an online petition to retain a substantive roadside memorial to Chelsea Elliott, which is on Gateford Road, Gateford Worksop. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I accept it. Moving on to Councillor Brown. I know Councillor Brown has two. Do you wish to deal with both at the same time, please, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, morning, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'll do
Good
both
morning.
at the same time, please.
Thank
My
you.
first petition, Mr. Chairman, is from Eastleek. It's a petition of 372 signatures signed by residents of Lantern Lane and parents and teachers of Lantern Lane Primary School for a mandatory 20 miles per hour speed limit along Lantern Lane. As well as being residential, it also includes a primary school, Eastleek Academy and Eastleek Leisure Centre. A new housing estate has recently been built along Lantern Lane and permission for a second phase granted. Lantern Lane is a cul-de-sac, so what goes in has to come out, which doubles the traffic past the school. Also, Lantern Lane Primary School Annex is on the opposite side of the road to the main school building, with pupils and staff having to cross several times a day. Reducing the speed limit to a mandatory 20 miles per hour would help them do so more safely. My second petition, Mr. Chair, is of 1,188 signatures from residents of Gotham. They're asking for either the removal of the parking restrictions or a limited waiting time outside the combined post office and local shop. This is the only shop in the village, and we all know how important it is to protect our rural shops and post offices. Over lockdown, this shop has been vital to the local community. Unfortunately, the council enforcement officer issued several parking tickets earlier this year over a several-week period, resulting in a big drop in passing trade for the shop. The owner has said without the passing trade, continued trading will be unsustainable. So the shop employs local people as well, and parking outside for 2 or 3 cars will not cause any obstructions for other road users. So will this council please help support a vital community asset and remove unnecessary parking restrictions? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I accept your petitions. Councillor Boyd Elliott, please. A request for the resurfacing of Park Road East, Calverton.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So working with Mark Spencer MP, we believe that Park Road East in Calverton is a busy and well-used road, but it is thoroughly in need of maintenance. We believe that if the road were to be fully resurfaced, this would improve the lives of both residents immediately on and surrounding Park Road East, alongside the wider residents of Calverton Village, and it being a main thoroughfare through the village for the Trent Barton bus. Okay, lots of people use it. So there's my petition, 239 signatures. Thank you. There we go.
Thank you. Moving on to Councillor Richard Butler, request for cycleways and tracks in and around Cockgrave. Councillor Butler.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a petition here which was done online and has so far been signed by 39 people, which you have there, and this is my copy of it. There we are. You won't be able to read it from there. And I'll read it to you. It's calling for new infrastructure for active transport between Cockgrave and Plumtree. In light of increased demand for safe active transport infrastructure, we would like Nottinghamshire County Council to consider implementing a new segregated cycleway and path along Plumtree Road and Cockgrave Road between Cockgrave and Plumtree. Post-COVID-19 and in line with national government guidelines, there is a clear requirement for the provision of safe active transport infrastructure. The introduction of a segregated cycleway would provide a safe route for people commuting by bike or foot from Cockgrave, Cropwell Bishop, Cropwell Butler and other villages to Nottingham. This would then join up with existing infrastructure on Melton Road. This route is already well used by people commuting by bicycle and people riding bikes for leisure purposes, and as such would be a natural route for a large number of journeys. Providing a dedicated cycleway will provide a safer, faster and healthier option for commuters who want to use active transport rather than driving or public transport, helping to reduce traffic congestion, pollution, and while allowing social distancing and improving the health and well-being of the local population. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's the petition.
Thank you. I accept your petition.
Thank you.
I have a petition from Councillor Dobson requesting the one-way system near Coddington School. Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It seems to have improved my link when I leave the iPad unmuted. If I mute it, that's when I can't hear you.
Right.
So I'd like to present a petition on behalf of 23 residents who live on Brownlow Hills and Valley View, Coddington, for a one-way system. The residents are finding it difficult to get in and out of their homes, their parking areas, because of course the school is there, and twice a day we have a lot of traffic going up and down each way. It has been looked at before by the powers that be and the engineers, but I would like it looked at again. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I accept your petition. I have a petition from Councillor Ogle requesting action on North Leverton Crossroads. Councillor Ogle.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning.
The community in the north of my Tuxford division request that road safety is investigated at the North Leverton Crossroads. North Leverton has an increased population. The crossroads are the busy centre of the village. Safety improvements are requested, and I believe there was over 1,000 signatures on the petition, Chairman. Thank you very much.
I have to say I haven't counted them all, but I take your word. I accept your petition. Right, a petition from Councillor Girling, which requests a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit on Horton Road, Newark.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It actually is a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit on Horton Road. What the residents are asking for is that these traffic calming measures are put in place. It's a mile-long road, and every resident, pretty much every resident, has signed a petition, plus the side roads to there, because it's a straight road. It's the straightest road in Newark. It's quite a wide road, and it's being used as drag racing by some young Turks, basically. And it's also, it's not done as a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. So they want to have a speed camera put in there. Now, I know that it doesn't actually qualify for a speed camera because the amount of volume of traffic it has. However, because it's been used as a speed track, I think we should look at it again and put some measure in to prevent it being used as such. Because it's not done at the same time every day, police being there is not really a deterrent. And also the Community Speed Watch, of which I'm a member, we've also done our bit there. So it really is a serious situation on that particular road, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I accept your petition. Moving on, I have a petition from Councillor Brooks requesting the adoption of the upper part of Bridal Road, Burton and Joyce, and to carry out road repairs. Councillor Brooks.
Hello, sorry,
Hello.
I keep dropping out, so I'm sorry about this. This is a petition from the residents of the upper part of Bridal Road in Burton Joyce requesting that the council adopts the road. Currently, the lower part of the road is adopted. It's a single access route to 11 properties, and they're requesting that the council adopts it and then professionally resurfaces the road to maintain a good order. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. I accept your petition. And finally, a petition from Councillor Henry requesting a residence parking scheme on part of Standhill Road, Carlton. Councillor Henry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. This is a petition on behalf of the residents of Standhill Road between Carlton Hill and Highfield Drive in my Carlton West Division, requesting a residence parking scheme to be considered for this location. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I accept your petition. Now ask for the Council to resolve that the petitions be referred to the appropriate committees for consideration. A report will be brought back to the Council in due course in accordance with standing orders. Is that accepted? Thank you.
Thank you.
Section 6B is a response to the petitions which have been presented to past chairman of the County Council. They have been in your blue book. You have had the opportunity to read them. I move that the contents of the report and actions that come from those are approved to be noted. Anyone against? Thank you. They're approved. Moving then on to item 7 on your yellow pages, which is the appointment of a committee chairman. Councillor Butler will introduce the report and move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the process and procedure means that when we appoint a new chairman to a committee, we have to bring this to full council for approval. We had a vacancy arise for the chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board, and so this report is to propose and approve Councillor Tony Harper to be the new chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board up to the next annual council meeting next May. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Cutts, are you seconding the motion, please?
Yes, Chairman, I second the motion, reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. I will open it up to debate. I already have got 4 speakers. Councillor Hollis, can I remind everybody that you have 5 minutes, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think I welcome Councillor Vickers standing aside, and I think I'll confirm that the rep from Ashfield District Council will now be attending the committee. I know we'd said that we weren't, as other authorities had made clear, while Councillor Vickers remains the chair. Obviously still disappointed that we've seen no sort of apology for the comments, which I believe were fairly outrageous, even despite him not being a councillor at the time. But equally, that being said, welcome the fact that he stood aside for this so the committee can continue. My main comments to this, Mr. Chairman, is quite simply, why are we appointing, and this is really, I hope the leader is going to address this in her comments, why are we appointing Councillor Harper to this committee? He already chairs an unbelievably busy committee, a committee that has probably some of the most important actions of this council already, and now we're proposing to give him the chairmanship of an equally important committee, a committee that handles health and homelessness, early years and school readiness, the Better Care Fund. Members will be aware that tobacco issues are a massive problem in Ashfield and Mansfield particularly. The Health and Wellbeing Board has been taking some great steps because of the attention of members. And I really feel that having a chairman of the committee that isn't going to be focused on it full time, he's handling an issue, he's handling his constituency issues in Eastwood, he's handling a very busy chairmanship of adult social care, and now we're giving him another committee. And frankly, you've got an army of opposition members that could have chaired the committee, but for God's sake, you've got a doctor who used to chair the committee, Councillor John Doddy. And I tell you something, if I was Councillor Doddy, I'd be absolutely furious that he's been overlooked and you've given the chairman to somebody else. And I'd have a lot more faith that this council was carrying out its duties to the Health and Wellbeing Board if somebody who wasn't already busy was chairing it. And frankly, I just think it shows you the ambivalence that this council shows towards health and well-being, because of course that committee focuses a lot of its energies in areas where Conservatives don't hold seats, Mr. Chairman. And I think I'm frustrated, and I'm sure many other members are as well. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollis. Councillor Rhodes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, whilst I'm not particularly interested in promoting any particular member of the Conservative group for the role, I do share some of the views that Councillor Hollis has just expressed. It's obviously I welcome the resignation of Councillor Vickers. Should never have been appointed, but we'll probably return to that later. However, to give the role to somebody that has already got a very busy committee with a very full agenda that is not only adult social care and health, but it is public health too, seems to me to be stretching that individual's responsibilities rather too far. And it seems to me that what we're doing here is exactly what we've done with Place, and create a super committee that makes it impossible almost for the chairman to be on of that committee to be on top of that role consistently. And so, you know, I don't agree that it's the right thing to do. I don't know whether Councillor Cutts has got a lack of talent on her backbenchers, but certainly I know that there are a number of people who have loyally supported the Conservative administration over a number of years that appear to be being overlooked. And I don't really understand why somebody that's already got a very busy portfolio is given health and well-being to bolt onto it, because the Health and Wellbeing Board is more than a bolt-on job. It's a very important committee, and it deserves to be recognised as such with a chair of its own. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bosniak, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Well, I'm pressing it and it says no available camera found, so I don't quite know what's happened there. Has someone else switched me off inadvertently?
If they do, I don't know how we do it. We can hear your voice if you wish to continue.
I'll just carry on like that then, because I also want to express my concern as well about the appointment of Councillor Harper to chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board, not just because of workload. And I think Alan's right to point out that this is also public health as well, which in itself is a vast, should be a committee of its own right. So not just because of the workload. And I find myself agreeing with Tom Hollis, which is unusual. But what it does to me, it says that we do not respect the Health and Wellbeing Board sufficiently to give it its own chair. This is, as Alan said, it's seen as, this is almost like being seen as a bolt-on job, and I'm not comfortable with that, and I doubt that my colleagues would be. The other thing to say is that the uniqueness of the position of the Chair of Health and Wellbeing Board needs to be considered, because it's been around for a long time now. It's made some great strides in bridging that gap between health and social care and the services that we offer at County Hall, and also the services that the districts provide. So that role is pivotal in maintaining that kind of mutual regard and respect for the work of both health and social care. It's difficult enough, and it was difficult enough for me when I was chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board, to be seen as anything other than a county councillor. And we had to really work on that relationship. For us now to put in place not only a councillor, but a councillor who is chair of adult social care and public health, that's like saying that this man is firmly wedded to the county council and local authority rather than to health. So I think this is a damaging step, and I think it could damage the what has been up until now a positive relationship with health.
Thank you, Councillor Wise.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yes, I share the comments already spoken about the inappropriate and excessive loading of responsibilities on one councillor. This is, as we know, this is not about being at a meeting and chairing a meeting. Having been chair of adult social care before there were specific responsibilities for public health, I know how demanding this role is, and I had, at any time, I had one very experienced vice chair as well. We're not officers, we don't have to know everything, but we do need to spend a lot of time on supporting staff. There's a large staff group, many units, there's a lot of policy work, and at the moment with COVID, there are enormous demands on the chair's time to meet with people. There's media work to do. It's a wide-ranging and complex.
I still don't think it's back for the phone, Alan, either. So no, it's gone off again. Alan. It's dropped off again.
We're getting a cross one with Councillor Pringle. Couldn't get across. So can we hold on? Can you mute, please?
Sorry, Chair, we do have him muted now.
Right. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Wise. Would you like to carry on?
That's all right. I think my point, I think, is clear, that I don't agree that the two roles are compatible or efficiently combined, and I would really advise yourselves to look at this again. And I realise it's only until the next AGM, but it's a very crucial time for both areas of work, both for adult social care, public health, and for the Health and Wellbeing Board. It's not a good time to load all this onto one person. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wise. Councillor Carr, and it's the last notification I have of the speaker before I go back to Councillor Cutts.
Good morning, Chairman, fellow councillors. I have to agree with what a lot of that's been said with regards to the adding on of this chairmanship to an existing chairmanship. I want to point out that it's absolutely nothing personal. I've got a lot of time for Tony. He and I get on well, and I have no problems with him personally. But it's a bit like asking the manager of Everton Football Club to manage West Ham at the same time. They're both very big jobs, and quite frankly, should be done by two separate people. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doddy.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that in terms of the role, I started a master's degree in public health last September at the University of Nottingham. The idea was to complement my work on adult social care and public health and understand the brain set behind the development of the policies that we have in public health. And I thought that if I was in there, if I did a master's degree, if I understood it, I could contribute significantly more to my role in County Hall. And I found it fascinating, particularly at this time of the COVID outbreak. I was right in the heart of the intellectual centre of the public health policies right at the moment the outbreak occurred. And I have to say that I was unavailable for the role because of the need to, do my degree. I thank you for your suggestions with regards to my appointment, but I must confirm I was not available for the appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doddy. I'm now moving to Councillor Cutts. Do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've reserved the right to speak, and I'd like to speak. First of all, Tom, why Tony Harper? And I think there's also Alan as well. Tony Harper, because much of the work that's done by the Adult Social Care and Public Health Committee is very compatible with the Health and Wellbeing Board. We work along the same lines in many areas, and many of the same people are involved. We do have a dedicated officer to public health who does an excellent job, and an excellent team behind him. And I felt Tony Harper was the right person to step into this for probably half the year. Joyce has said that the Public Health Committee, which she chaired, certainly is a very interesting committee. We had an awful lot of roundtable discussions, as I seem to remember, and that took up a lot of time. Those roundtable discussions were, if you like, winnowing out the policy of where we were going to go. And I think they are no longer necessary to have so many meetings outside the board. In fact, in many ways, they are better being joined up with the central part of the council's work. Muriel says that improved access to the board for our councillors and a large staff group. Well, that's absolutely right. It's a large staff group across the same piece of work, and therefore there is some synergy in joining it up. Well, you may disagree, Muriel, but there is a lot of synergy joining it up. It's many of the same officers who are concerned. Can I say how much I respect those people who are outside the county council, who give their free time to this, who come along to meetings, and that's everybody, whatever your role is, whether you are one of the GPs representing the community health service, or whether you are a district councillor representing your district there, or any other officer that comes along, including those who represent the Patients Forum. But this neatly all joins together with the work that the county council does across the piece for social care and health. Steve Carr said he agreed with what was said, so I'll accept your agreement, Steve. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Doddy, for clarifying the reason why you no longer wish to carry out the role of Chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board. It's because of your pressure of work, and it's at your request that we took you out of that post, because, as you say, you have so much more to offer in other places. But no doubt, Councillor Doddy, if you find yourself elected to the council again, and in a time when you have more time to devote to it, rather than running your health practice and doing your degree, then I'm sure your name will be considered by all of us. And since this is an appointment that's done by my group, that's the ruling party in County Hall, for which we have the majority of members, it has been agreed between all of us, and I think it's a perfectly good reason to expect Tony Harper to carry out this amount of work. If he couldn't manage it, he would have said so. So I think you're making assumptions on his behalf, which you're really not entitled to make, because Tony Harper has said he can devote the necessary amount of time to this, and I'm sure he'll make a very good job. And he has mine and the group's. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Butler, do you wish to sum up?
Well, actually, the leader has pretty much summed up there, but really just to confirm and emphasise that there is no doubt whatsoever in the importance of the Health and Wellbeing Board and the appreciation of the work it does. Councillor Harper has shown that he is perfectly capable of running a very important committee as now, especially during the current crisis that we're in. And of course, he's supported on the Adult Health and Social Committee by two very good vice chairmen. And when it comes to his work on the Health and Wellbeing Board, which I really do think is a natural link between his main committee work and the health community, he also has there a very good vice chairman who is obviously nothing to do with the county council nor indeed the world of politics. So I think really with the comments that the leader has made, I think really we just need to move the recommendation and look forward to council support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'm now going to go to the vote. I am aware that Councillor Carr has indicated he wishes to speak again. It is that you have one opportunity to. You have spoken already. If it's on point of clarification, would you make your comment?
Yes, I think just to say that I think the leader sort of led people to believe that I'm in favour of it. What I said was that I've got no problems with Tony Harper personally, but I think it should be done by two separate people.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the vote now. I'm proposing that for all of the votes today, that will be recorded votes, because it's very difficult with this system to be able to identify how many are against. So I'm going to hand over to the Chief Executive to go through the vote, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, colleagues. I'll start with Councillor Adair, please.
4.
Councillor Allen. Pauline Allen. Oh, I'll come back.
Sorry, I'm muted and I forgot about it. Abstain.
Councillor Barnfather.
4.
Councillor Bosniak.
Abstain.
Councillor Bradley.
4.
Councillor Brooks.
Abstain.
Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Butler.
4.
Councillor Carr.
Abstain.
Councillor John Clark.
Abstain.
Councillor Neil Clark. Councillor Neil Clark. I'll come back to you, Neil. Councillor Cotty.
4.
Councillor Creamer.
Abstain.
Councillor Cutts. Councillor Cutts.
4.
Councillor Deakin, has she joined us yet? No, okay. Councillor Dobson. Councillor Dobson.
I thought I would unmuted. Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Doddy.
4.
Councillor Elliott.
4.
Councillor Fielding.
Abstain.
Councillor Fole.
Abstain.
Councillor Garner.
4.
Councillor Guilfoyle.
Abstain.
Councillor Girling.
4.
Councillor Greaves.
Abstain.
Councillor Handley.
4.
Councillor Harper.
4.
Councillor Henry.
Abstain.
Councillor Henshaw.
Abstain.
Councillor Hollis.
Abstain.
Councillor Hopewell.
4.
Councillor Richard Jackson.
4.
Councillor Roger Jackson.
4.
Councillor Kerry.
4.
Councillor Knight.
4.
Councillor Lawton.
4.
Councillor Longdon.
4.
Councillor Madden.
Abstain.
Councillor Martin.
Abstain.
Councillor Meal.
Abstain.
Councillor Ogle.
4.
Councillor Owen.
4.
Councillor Payne. Councillor Michael Payne.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Peck.
Abstain.
Councillor Place.
Abstain.
Councillor Plant. Councillor Liz Plant. I'll come back to you, Liz. Councillor Pringle.
Abstain.
Thank you, Mike. Councillor Purdue Horan.
4.
Councillor Quigley.
4.
Councillor Rhodes.
Abstain.
Councillor Kevin Rostance.
4.
Councillor Phil Rostance.
4.
Councillor Saddington.
4.
Councillor Sissons.
4.
Councillor Helen Ann Smith.
Abstain.
Thank you. Helen, you're still very faint. I think you said abstain. Just nod at me. I think. Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Simbaridis. Councillor Parry Simbaridis. I'll come back to you, Parry. Councillor Dickens. Councillor Walker.
4.
Councillor Wallace.
4.
Councillor Weiss.
Abstain.
Councillor Wetton.
Abstain.
Councillor Gordon Wheeler.
4.
Councillor Jonathan Wheeler.
4.
Councillor Woodhead.
Abstain.
Councillor Wright.
4.
Councillor Zadrozny. I'm not sure that Councillor Zadrozny is on the call, but I'll now go back and see if I can pick up the votes from colleagues who I couldn't hear.
Chief Executive, it's Keith Ford. Just to say, I've got Councillor Simbaridis on a mobile phone here, so he's able to confirm that he is abstaining. I will just put him on the call now.
Okay, that's fine, Keith. If you've got him on the line, that's fine. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Keith. Councillor Neil Clark, I was missing.
Hi, thank you. Sorry, Chairman, I couldn't unmute. My vote is 4.
Thank you so much. Councillor Deakin, I don't think Councillor Deakin's on the call. Can anyone in Democrat?
Can we hear me?
Yes. Hello, Samantha.
Oh, hello.
Can I record your vote?
Abstain.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Liz Plant, I was missing.
Abstain.
Thank you, Liz. And then lastly, I'll double check whether Councillor Zadrozny is on the call.
Abstain, Anthony.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, I've just topped these up and we'll come back to you. Thank you.
I think this is where you talk among yourselves, but that's all you can do, isn't it, at the moment with this system? So
I was already saying to myself earlier.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask, is there an order for the questions yet?
Yes.
I haven't had it. Has it been sent out?
Sorry. You've been emailed with the questions before they go on to.
And that's the order they're going to be in, right? Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Right, the result of the vote is 36, against 0, abstain 30. The motion or the recommendation is approved. Can I now move on to agenda item number 8, which is the management accounts 2019 to 2020. Again, they are in your pack, have been circulated. I call upon Councillor Richard Jackson to introduce the report and move the recommendations, please. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Good morning. And can I present to you the full council today, the management accounts for the 2019-20 financial year. Clearly, this report's been compiled against the backdrop of the emerging COVID-19 emergency. Central government allocated council £22 million of grant funding right at the end of the 19-20 financial year, and that's been transferred to reserve to fund COVID-19 related costs into the 2020-2021 financial year. Financial Resilience Group has been established to consider the financial impact arising from the crisis and will report its findings back to senior leadership and members. Due to the significant financial challenges facing the authority, particularly around the increased costs and demand for social care services, I can report that there was an overspend of £4.2 million against committee budgets in 2019-20. This is in line with the financial monitoring reports considered by the Finance and Major Contracts Management Committee throughout the year. One of the main reasons for the overspend specifically relates to the increased number of looked after children that are coming into the system, costs of looking after these vulnerable children. Table 1 of the report shows that there was a need for us to invest an additional £9.7 million in the Children and Young People's Committee. This was offset by net underspends of £5.5 million across the committees as measures to mitigate spending were rolled out across all areas of the council. Taking into account variances against central items such as interest rates, interest payments, capital charges and government grants, a total county council overspend for 2019-20 was just £13,000. As planned, the general fund balance will decrease by 2.1 million to 22 million as at the end of the 2019 financial year. And despite the difficulties faced by the council, £120 million of expenditure was invested into the capital programme. The majority of this expenditure related to school improvement projects and providing additional school places, as well as investing to improve the condition of the county's infrastructure. I'd like to draw Council's attention to the appendices to this report. They give further details of the 2019-20 outturn, the level of council reserves and allocations that have been made during the year from the contingency budget. Also, appendices D and E provide an update for 2 key areas of local authority financial governance. Appendix D sets out the final position against the 19-20 prudential indicators that were approved as part of the budget report to Council in February of last year, whilst Appendix E provides a review of the Council's treasury management activities for the year to the 31st of March this year. Council's pre-audited 19-20 statement of accounts was published on the Council's website on the 7th of July this year and will be presented to a future Governance and Ethics Committee meeting on completion of the annual external audit, which is currently well underway. Chairman, I move the recommendations and happy to answer any questions that members may have either now or in writing later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Can I call on Councillor Roger Jackson to second the motion?
Thank you, Chairman. I second the motion and reserve my right to speak later. And whilst I'm on there, Chairman, may I, unfortunately, I didn't have the last meeting, take this opportunity to congratulate you and the Vice Chairman on your being elected to your positions and hope you enjoy your year, albeit it may be a strange one.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you. Right, Councillor Pringle.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, can I apologise for interrupting Councillor Vice earlier? It was actually a call from IT to try and correct the dropouts that I'm having presently. So I do apologise for that interruption. Can I thank Councillor Jackson and the finance team for this report, especially for within the first paragraph, recognising and responding to the consequences of COVID-19. It seems we've seen both sides of the accounts this week, which cover the general financial operations of the council, such as seen in the paper, but also Within Monday's Finance and Major Contracts Committee, we were shown the severity of negative finance with a potential deficit of 26.3 million, 11 million of that directly related to COVID and increased service provision, but all of it arguably directly attributable. We acknowledge the sharing of financial position from the Chair through the 151 officer. And again, although we've seen response through demand over the time set of this paper, and sometimes response from the Finance Committee has been eye-watering, we have understood the reasons of the demand and have openly debated it accordingly at committee. Through COVID, we face things completely unforeseen, such as debt or even debt recovery. Debt recovery having been suspended, and certainly our judicial system nowhere near ready enough to respond to cases which they may be presented with. If we recognise these issues, then we must also recognise the potential for unemployment and inability to pay council tax, even at a suggested 10% increase, which will directly affect our tax base. I'm sure that next year's paper will be as detailed as the other years. However, my fear is that the paper recognises COVID-19. Next year's paper will show insufficient funding from government and therefore will highlight a spiral of debt through lack of government support. Again, I applaud the 151 officer and finance team for producing today's paper, which I will be supporting. I must though ask, if not even demand, that although we recognise the lobbying efforts of the administration, that the leader is bolder in her approach to the Secretary of State, Robert Jenrick, who yesterday claimed in the local press that Nottinghamshire had had all its COVID-related expenses covered. We all know that's not true. He also claimed that council should not have to bear the burden and should not have to cut services. To be confident, we need to know what we're getting and to be able to draw on it immediately, and not something that we see a drawdown on 5, 6, 7 years time down the line. Having already witnessed savings and service reduction of nearly 300 million during the past decade of Tory austerity, surely our residents are entitled to now rely on some quality service provision. Otherwise, what are we here for? Chairman, I support the paper, but I'm deeply concerned about the future that this may hold for the county and its residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have Councillor Carr, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just going on from that, actually, seek assurances from Councillor Jackson about the state of the finances moving forward. I noticed that on the 21st, Nottingham City Council, our neighbours, announced £12.5 million worth of cuts, which will result in people losing jobs. A disabled day centre for people will be closing, although they haven't announced which one yet, and various other cuts to services. In fact, Nottingham City are reporting that whilst they've received money from the government, it only covers 27% of the COVID costs. And I would like some assurance from Councillor Jackson that we've got this in hand at the moment as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hollis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think members of the Finance and Property Committee will know my views on this paper. I just feel very frustrated. I feel that a lot of the COVID funding has been used to prop up some of the council's finances. I'm also frustrated by 5.1 on page 4 of the report, an underspending the contingency. Members will be aware that the Ashfield Independents, supported by the Labour group at the last council budget, proposed that we amended the Conservative and Mansfield Independent budget last time to save the Short Start Centre in my division at a cost of simply £28,000, and to read that we've underspent the money that we allocated by 5.1 million. £28,000 wouldn't have made a difference to the budget, but it would have made a massive difference to the residents in my division. So there's certainly many frustrations, but I think as as I think the conversation went at the Finance and Property Committee, I seriously hope that the council are going to be looking at some different ways of balancing the budget. I mean, I note Councillor Richard Jackson's comments in the press recently where he was mooting the council's only option is to raise council tax by 10%. He made some interesting comments at the Finance Committee where he suggested that maybe we'd have to cut some services as well, but of course we want neither. And I'll only draw the attention to members that Ashfield Council brings over slightly £6.5 million of council tax in per year based on investments that we've made. We now bring in the same from the investments. If the county councils do the same, we wouldn't have to be cutting services, we could expand services. But it seems to me that this council has only been run into the ground, so unitary authority is the only option we have. But they are the comments I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Meal.
Thank you, Chair. May I add my thanks to those of Councillor Pringle for the work of the Section 151 officer and his staff. As the report notes, it's commenting on a situation that seems a world away from where we are now. However, last year we were still dealing with austerity, still having to make massive savings because government grants paid out of taxes were at historically low levels, while the demand for services such as those for children continue to increase. So we see the general fund balances, our free reserves, the savings set aside for a rainy day, were drawn down by a further £2.1 million last year to £22 million. So instead of being used for a rainy day, like a COVID pandemic, they were further reduced to pay for everyday costs of services. And then we've had the expenses and lot of income this year resulting from COVID. Not so much a rainy day, more of a monsoon, but one, as the Public Accounts Committee in its report today has said, government should have been prepared for. The government has gone some way to compensate for our costs, but not by enough. And by the look of it, our rainy day reserves will not meet the costs in future years. Unless government steps up to the plate, our residents will experience a continuation of austerity at a much greater level. That means our roads will become even worse. There will have to be further cuts to our libraries and learning offer, and our older residents and their families may suffer even more. That is not what Nottinghamshire residents want or deserve, and it makes the Secretary of State for Local Authorities, Right Honourable Robert Jenrick's assertions of support sound very, very hollow. I'll vote for this report, but it reveals that government needs to do much more to honour its pledges to our residents.
Thank you. I have one other speaker, Councillor Martin, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Roger Jackson if he wishes to speak. So, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I fully concur with Councillors Carr and Pringle over the state of the finances of this council. And it absolutely beggars belief that the Right Honourable Robert Jenrick promised with Richie Sunak to stand shoulder to shoulder with the county councils and indemnify them against the COVID pandemic. We are now 12.5 million short, and Councillor Jackson goes in the press and threatens an increase of council tax of 10%. That's in the Nottinghamshire Post, right? And you said you don't want to do that. And it also absolutely beggars belief that you intend to sequestrate the assets of the district councils, liquefy them and pay the debts of the county council with that. Until this government, who has systemically failed to write the green paper over adult health and social care, giving no direction on the expenditure of it, until this government writes the white paper, finally, we'll be in this recycling issue of debt over adult health and social care perpetually. So it's up to the Conservatives, who have been reminded of have the majority and will always get the vote by Councillor Cutts earlier on. So get your finger out and get your government to do something about it.
Thank you. Councillor Roger Jackson, do you wish to exercise your right to speak?
Only to say, Chairman, that the Evening Post headline was just a headline taken totally out of context of what Councillor Jackson said, and the fact the whole country is in a state of financial difficulty, and I know this our council is doing the best it can. This committee is doing the best it can to fulfil its obligations and fulfil what we need to do to bring this council forward.
Thank you. I'll therefore go to Councillor Richard Jackson and ask him if he wishes to sum up.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you to colleagues for their comments, which were almost entirely not on the paper that's in front of us, which is the accounts for 2019-2020. They were debated on Monday at Finance Committee with the support of the main opposition party. Let me just pick up on one or two of the things that have been said, however, because I think some misleading things have been said, not least by Councillor Hollis, who repeated what he said on Monday, which is entirely misleading. So the allegation that somehow we've used COVID funding to prop up the county council's finances is demonstrably nonsense. The opposite is true. The council's reserves have propped up the council's spending on the COVID crisis. The government funding that we've received so far is not sufficient to cover our funding. As I said on Monday, we've spent whatever's needed to be spent to keep people safe. We've done whatever's been asked of us by government to keep people safe throughout the crisis, and that's resulted in an enormous financial bill. We've had very significant additional financing from central government that goes towards paying for that. We're in a good position in that we have our own reserves, which in the short and medium term will continue to fund that spending. The leader, many more of us on the political side have been lobbying members of Parliament and members of the government at very senior levels. We're very well placed in that our Chief Executive and our Chief Finance Officer are highly placed in their professional organisations nationally, have been lobbying from that direction, and all of that lobbying continues. But we do have a sound plan for how we're going to fill this financial void. That will be developed further over the summer. We'll be communicating with members in due course. There was a question really about the Chancellor saying that the government would stand shoulder to shoulder with councils. I don't think at any point when that was said back in March, anybody expected the cost to the public purse to be £190 billion. There is no such thing as government or council money. It's all taxpayers' money. It's all got to come from the taxpayer, and a hard-pressed taxpayer at that. So I think we do have our share of funding to find locally in efficiencies, and the more efficient we can make our organisations, then we contribute towards that. And I think we've got a duty to do that. Beyond that, Chairman, I will simply say that I thank the finance team who've been involved in closing the accounts and getting this paper to us, and I particularly commend them for the fact that on a £480 million spending authority, we were within £13,000 of budget at year end. So thank you, Chairman. Support the paper.
Thank you. I'm now going to move to the vote, and as we have previously, it will be a recorded vote. So I'm handing over now to Anthony. If you would do the recorded vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to. Starting with Councillor Adair.
For.
Councillor Allen.
For.
Councillor Barnfather.
For.
Councillor Bosniak.
For.
Councillor Bradley.
For.
Councillor Brooks.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Butler.
For.
Councillor Carr.
For.
Councillor John Clark.
For.
Councillor Neil Clark.
For.
Councillor Cotty.
For.
Councillor Creamer.
For.
Councillor Cutts.
For.
Councillor Deakin.
Abstain.
Councillor Dobson.
For.
Councillor Doddy.
For.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Fielding.
For.
Councillor Fole.
For.
Councillor Garner.
For.
Councillor Guilfoyle.
For.
Councillor Girling.
For.
Councillor Greaves.
For.
Councillor Handley.
4.
Councillor Harper.
4.
Councillor Henry.
4.
Councillor Henshaw. Councillor Paul Henshaw.
4.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Hollis.
Abstain.
Councillor Hopewell.
4.
Councillor Richard Jackson.
4.
Councillor Roger Jackson.
4.
Councillor Kerry.
4.
Councillor Knight.
4.
Councillor Lawton.
4.
Councillor Longdon.
4.
Councillor Madden.
Abstain.
Councillor Martin.
Abstain.
Councillor Meal.
4.
Councillor Ogle.
4.
Councillor Owen.
4.
Councillor Payne.
4.
Councillor Peck.
4.
Councillor Place.
Anthony, sorry. Anthony, it's Michael. Somebody spoke on my behalf there.
Yes, I'm sorry, I misheard.
I'm sorry, Michael. Can I come back to you then and
Yeah,
record
fine.
your vote, please?
Yeah.
Councillor Payne.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Peck.
4.
Councillor Place.
4.
Councillor Plant.
4.
Councillor Pringle.
4.
Councillor Purdue Horan.
4.
Councillor Quigley.
4.
Councillor Rhodes.
4.
Councillor Kevin Rostance.
4.
Councillor Phil Rostance.
4.
Councillor Saddington.
4.
Councillor Sissons.
4.
Councillor Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Simbaridis.
Chief Executive, I'm just putting Councillor Simbaridis on again. One moment.
Councillor Simbaridis.
That was a vote for.
Thank you, Parry. Councillor Vickers.
4.
Councillor Walker.
4.
Councillor Wallace.
4.
Councillor Vice.
4.
Councillor Wetton.
4.
Councillor Gordon Wheeler.
4.
Jonathan Wheeler.
4.
Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Yvonne Woodhead.
4.
Thank you, Yvonne. Councillor Wright.
4.
And Councillor Zadrozny.
Abstain.
Thank you.
The result of that vote is 66-0-4. 6 abstain. The motion recommendation, sorry, is approved. Thank you for that. Moving on to the next item on your agenda, which is item number 9, which is questions from Nottinghamshire and City of Nottinghamshire Fire Authority. There have been no questions. So I now move on to item 9B, which is questions for committee chairman, or two committee chairmen, sorry. As set out in the Constitution, a maximum of 60 minutes is allowed for questions to committee chairman, after which any remaining questions will receive a written response. I'd like to remind members that following the changes in the Constitution, there will be only one supplementary question, which must be from the member who asked the original question. The supplementary question should be on the same matter and should be in the form of a question, not a statement. There will be no adjournment debates. Okay, thank you. So let's move to the first, which is a question by Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Carr, thank you.
Yes, hello. Question for the Chairman of Communities and Place Committee. Nottinghamshire County Council was able to bid under the government's Emergency Active Travel Fund. The bids had to be ambitious for the reduction of carbon emissions by encouraging less motorised traffic and greater use of bicycles and walking. Given this information, will the Chair explain, given our indicative allocation in phase 1 was 573,000.
Chair, can I just
the wrong question?
Can I just interrupt you there? Reading off my sheet here, Councillor Carr, it's the question to the leader, please.
Well, I did ask whether it was in the order that was sent out by Sarah Ashton, and I was told yes. So, is there another order then? Because
hang on, just a moment. I'm trying to listen to two people at once. Just hold a moment. Yeah. Okay. All right. Right. Okay. It went out on the emails. So the question that I'm asking you to speak to is from you concerning investigation of a member into an allegation.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
That's fine. But the email, just to point out, the email that I've had is actually A, B, C, D, E, F, G in that order.
Yeah,
right.
And I have it all in numbers, which make it slightly confusing. But I'm not always perfect. Most of the time, but not always.
Right,
So
I apologise if
I've
misunderstood, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And your 60 minutes. The 60 minutes will start now.
Okay. Question to the Leader of the Council. At the Council meeting on the 10th of June 2020, the Leader of the Council said the following in relation to the investigation into allegations about Councillor Steve Vickers that, quote, the group has received a full apology, unquote, and, quote, the party has received a full apology and that the matter is now closed, unquote. Will the Leader of the Council provide the following information? 1. Why were many councillors in her group not aware of the apology that had been made to them? 2. Has the National Conservative Party finalised its investigation? If that is the case, can the decision document be shared with residents of this county? And 3, is Councillor Vickers still a member of the Conservative and Mansfield Independent Group? Given that at the meeting you gave your unqualified support for Councillor Vickers in his role as Chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board, and that you support caused huge offence to many up and down the county, will you now concede that you exhibited poor leadership and judgment as leader of this council?
Wait a minute. Little problem with the electrics. Right, thank you. Sorry, problem with the electrics. Councillor Rhodes, can I, as your question is on the same matter and the same issue, can I ask you to ask your question now, which is in regard to the investigation of the member into an allegation? Councillor Rhodes?
Yes, of course, Chairman. Thank you very much. It's a question to the Leader of the Council. The Labour Group welcomes the resignation of County Councillor Steve Vickers, who previously expressed Islamophobic views on social media, for which he was suspended by the Conservative Party from his recently appointed post of Chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board. The appointment of Councillor Vickers caused widespread anger and offence among partners in other local authorities and within the health community, and members of the public were outraged. Will the Leader of the County Council take this opportunity to apologise for the offence caused by her appointment of Councillor Vickers and for the subsequent damage to the reputation of Nottinghamshire County Council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Councillor Cutts, please.
Thank you, Chairman. At the full council meeting on the 11th of June, I explained the reasons why I and my group had chosen to accept the apology from Councillor Steve Vickers for any offence caused by comments he made in the social media post before he became a county councillor. I recognised that he made these remarks in the immediate aftermath of a sickening attack in Nice in France, when a lorry was deliberately driven into families enjoying a day out on a French bank holiday. This caused the death of 86 people and injured 458 others. Steve has a number of French friends, and therefore he's felt especially shocked at this appalling event. It was Councillor Vickers' own decision to write to the Chief Executive and step down from his position, rather than become a distraction from the business of the Council. In light of the resignation, I asked the Chairman of the Adult Social Care and Public Health Committee to assume this task, as much of the work he does is closely aligned with the Health and Wellbeing Board. There has been no decision by the Conservative Party, and I can only assume the investigation is still ongoing. Steve Vickers remains a member of the Conservative group. I will inform the Council if this situation changes, and at this stage I have nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Cutts. Councillor Carr, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
If you put it now, then Councillor Cutts will then make a response to it, and I'll then go to Councillor Rhodes. So,
given that I emailed the leader of the council twice asking for this information, and I've now had to come and ask a question at full council, could the leader of the council advise me why she chose to ignore my 2 emails? Thank you.
Councillor Cutts.
Thank you for your emails, Councillor Carr. I felt your emails were not there to throw any light on the matter, but merely to continue something which I considered had been accepted by my group and has not yet been decided by the Conservative Party. Can I remind you, until someone has been proved guilty, they are innocent, which is English common law and has been for many years. And therefore, I think you would do well to suspend your judgment until we are sure in which direction this is going to go. At the present time, there has been nothing from the Conservative Party come back. I can only assume that they are also, if you like, working under difficult conditions because of the COVID crisis. And as I have said in my first report, when there is something I have to report, I will come back to this council.
Thank you, Councillor Cutts. Councillor Rhodes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. That Councillor Vickers made his own decision to resign, and it wasn't Councillor Cutts' decision, still leaves unanswered questions about her leadership. Will the leader instigate unconscious bias training and appropriate training to improve the understanding of equality, respect and tolerance among members and officers of this council, all members and officers of this council, and will she accompany me to the first session?
My unqualified support for Steve Vickers was based upon the way he acted as Chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board and conducted his duties diligently since he was elected to the council in 2017. I can imagine that my being leader of the Conservative group will always cause some politicians somewhere to take a great offence at my leadership, because of my politics. The direct question you posed to me, Councillor Rhodes, is, will I attend a training course with you? I suggest there are other members of your group who would do well to accept your offer. And maybe it's something the whole council should consider. Certainly, I would be prepared to consider that, provided the whole council is prepared to turn up, because it may do us all a bit of good. And I honestly can say, I think some of the behaviour and the comments that have been made are really outside any one decent person wishing to make comment on them. And therefore, I think let the whole council be trained, and I'll certainly accompany you together with the other 64 members.
Let's introduce it then, Chairman, and I'll hold the leader to that committee.
Thank you, Councillor Cutts. I'll now move to question number 3, which is from Councillor Vise, concerning the disproportionate impact of the COVID-19 on BAME communities, and Councillor Cutts to reply. Councillor Wise.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is a question to Councillor Cutts. Given the very broad recommendations emerging from the government's review of the disproportionate impact of COVID on the Black and minority ethnic communities, what are your own current priorities for the exploration and consultation to improve matters in the county? Thank you.
Councillor Cutts.
From early in the COVID-19 emergency, national and international research and data has identified that potential additional impact of the pandemic on people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic, that's BAME, backgrounds, as well as those with certain long-term healthcare conditions. The Council has met with the recognised trades unions weekly and the self-managed groups supported by the BAME and disabled employees fortnightly, and held discussions with the Corporate Equalities Group to ensure that there is a consistent understanding of the impact across the Council's workforce and services emerging evidence in relation to the potential underlying causes of the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on certain groups. The Council has taken a number of specific actions aimed at supporting BAME colleagues, as well as those with additional vulnerabilities. These were recently reported to the Personnel Committee and received unanimous support from members of that committee. These actions include the development of a specific risk assessment for people with additional vulnerabilities, including those from BAME communities, increasing the number of mental health first aiders, including trained and additional 6 colleagues nominated by the Black Workers Group, extending the existing counselling provision to operate telephone support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as part of the Council's extensive employee health and wellbeing support package available to every employee, commissioning additional trauma counselling in response to a request from the Black Workers Group, introducing specialist bereavement training for colleagues experienced death in their professional capacity, updating the Council's learning and development offer to give renewed focus to equality matters and to ensure managers are effectively supported, all their teams, including the BAME colleagues, undertaking an employee survey to understand how our workforce are feeling about working for the Council and the support they were receiving. They received overwhelmingly positive response from across the Council's workforce. I will repeat that. They received an overwhelmingly positive response from across the Council's workforce. The Adult Social Care and Health Department has recently launched a programme of service management to consider the adverse impact of the COVID-19 on social care staff from BAME communities and the wider population from different racial and ethnic backgrounds. This work is being led by the Principal Social Worker and Chair of the Black Workers Group, involving practice leaders, staff and people who have experienced social care to better understand the impacts and the co-produce solutions to improve working environment and cultures and improve outcomes for people receiving support from the Council. The corporate leadership team is working with our partners in the Local Resilience Forum and Integrated Care System to implement the recommendations contained within the Public Health England's latest report on the disparities in the impact of COVID-19 on particular groups. This includes the Director of Public Health commissioning the data cell of the LRF to undertake more detailed local analysis of the impact and the underlying reasons, and working with local universities to use this information to develop solutions. Through the recently established Health Protection Board, chaired by the Director of Public Health, work is also being undertaken to develop and implement education and prevention campaigns involving BAME and faith communities, to target health promotion and disease prevention programmes, and to ensure that recovery strategies reduce inequalities and bring about sustainable change. Working across the ICS to improve equity, access and experience of services and improved outcomes. Developing additionally culturally appropriate occupational task assessment tools for a variety of occupants. I think I've covered all the points that were raised in me by the question very fully, because the question was only four lines long. But Muriel, if there are any further questions, I'm happy to try and answer them for you.
Thank you, and thank you for your response. Just one question. In being able to advance all the programme that you've mentioned, what is your own view of the recent past and current adequacy of training for both councillors and officers regarding our unconscious bias in all our activities?
Councillor Cutts.
I don't believe there is an unconscious bias. I believe this council has striven very, very hard to try and work with all workers. I know we have had regular meetings across the trades union who have commended this council for the work they have carried out, has said the work has been exemplary. And I can only quote what the unions are saying to me, as this is a matter for the officers of this council and not for councillors. We do not employ the workforce, but I would not accept anything less than the best for Nottinghamshire. And I am assured by my officers that this is the case, that we are doing our level best to address all needs of all people in the county of Nottinghamshire, including those people who work for Nottinghamshire County Council.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did see that someone had indicated that they wished to speak on this one. It's now gone off my panel now. Is anyone asking for the right to speak?
There are no supplementaries, Chairman.
I accept that, Chairman, but I'm just making sure that the hand that came up was a serious one or whether it's an accidental one. Accidental one. Thank you very much. I'll move then on to question number 4, and it's Councillor Pringle about the Robin Hood line. Councillor Pringle,
Thank you,
Councillor
Chairman.
to respond.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, Leader. Despite the Conservative MPs for Newark and Sherwood have been in post for 10 years-ish and expressing frequent claims to be pursuing the reinstatement of the Robin Hood line, it appears that there's been very little achieved in this regard. And in fact, the only action to date has been the feasibility study undertaken by the then Labour administration at NCC in 2016. Can the Leader update members on the current state of progress with regard to the reinstatement of the Robin Hood line, please?
Thank you. Councillor Cutts to respond.
Thank you. I thank you, my colleague Mike Pringle, for asking me the question. Given that my administration has vocally and proactively advocated for infrastructure investment in our county throughout our term of office, I am surprised at Councillor Pringle's suggestion that very little has been achieved, in quotation marks, since the Labour group went into opposition. Nevertheless, the situation has changed considerably since they called for a feasibility study into the Robin Hood line's extension, and I am happy to update the opposition on how this Conservative-led administration has worked hard and hand in hand with Conservative government to bring forward these long-deserved changes. In August 2019, the Robin Hood line was re-enfranchised to the East Midlands Railways. This council actively contributed to the refranchising process, pressing the Department of Transport to require that whichever company assumed control of the line would update and enhance the work which we had previously undertaken. As a result, when East Midlands Railways took over the franchise, they were obliged to put together a fund, a business case to government, and outlining their plans by August this year, which, if accepted by the Department of Transport, would have funded the Restoring Railways Fund. Though COVID-19 pandemic has unsurprisingly delayed this process, we have maintained the pressure on the East Midlands Railways and the Department of Transport through both the franchisee steering group as well as regional bodies, including Transport for the East Midlands and Midlands Connect, of which I play a leading role and a member of both those boards. Councillor Pringle is quite right to note that the support of our members of Parliament, which should be valued by all members of this council, it is not only Robert Jenrick who has supported us in this matter, but also Mark Spencer, Lee Anderson, and of course our very own Ben Bradley, each of whom have met with ministers, raised debates in Parliament and championed our communities in Westminster after years of being overlooked by their Labour Party predecessors. And I have no doubt that without their intervention, we would have a much harder task on our hands, and I would like to thank them for the work they've taken up on our behalf. This is true working in partnership. I have made the case throughout my time as leader of the council that Nottinghamshire deserves its fair share of government funding and that we should unlock the potential of these communities left behind by years of Labour rule. Through extending the Robin Hood line, it is an important part of this levelling up. It must also be undertaken alongside other measures such as improvements to the A614697, increased capacity of the Ollerton roundabout, and development of sites such as the Top Wighay Farm. This is to say nothing of our regional investment we will see from the HS2 and the wider work that's being done to maximise the benefits of that flagship project. Our Nottinghamshire communities deserve an ambitious council that will champion their needs, and I am pleased to say that is exactly what this administration does.
Thank you, Councillor Cutts. Councillor Pringle, do you have a supplementary?
If that's okay, Chair, please. Yeah.
Please make it.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader, for that. And I'm thrilled at the support over a decade of Tory MPs. I'm just fearful that within the last couple of years, through the closure of the last deep mine in Ollerton, things have been alleviated somewhat onto that line, and it would have been appropriate at that time to include certainly seeing something move forward in a direction. I understand the fact that there's been a sharing of information and a structure with business applications for who takes on the line, but it seems very seldom to ever raise its head unless, and I know Councillor Bradley did mention something in the chat some months ago, which I believe caused a little bit of conflict between himself and Mark Spencer, the MP for Sherwood. However, I think it is a cross-party challenge to get this line up. We know the differences between the line, very similar in Aberdeen, that cost a fortune compared to the comparison that has been made.
Councillor, can you ask a question?
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question.
Statement.
So what I would ask is that if the four members of Parliament that you asked, or that you mentioned, yourself and those members at Warsaw, Pevenston and Ollerton, can push this even further and keep it at the forefront, especially with the Prime Minister acknowledging another 350 million for infrastructure development yesterday. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cutts.
I was delighted to hear the Chancellor's comments yesterday, because I don't think Nottinghamshire has received anything like its fair share, as the rest of the East Midlands counties haven't. To come back to the Robin Hood line, the Thoresby estates, where the last mine was closed, have an extensive plan for redeveloping that site. That site also includes the Robin Hood railway line and a station to serve the new housing that will be there, and this will continue on through Ollerton. Can I also remind you that there has been considerable neglect of the 614, including the Ollerton roundabout, for very many years, and it's taken this administration to get it back onto the agenda. Though I've heard lengthy speeches from many members of the Labour group on this, nothing has ever actually been done. But we're doing it now, and I'm delighted that you have said that this is a cross-party initiative, and I look forward to your fulsome report on this, for fulsome support on this, including all the other areas we put pressure on government, which is for improvements to the A46, to the A1, to the A52, and other major roads around the county. And I'm grateful for your support, Mike, and that of your colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm moving on now then to a question by Councillor Bosnack regarding the deaths in care homes.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, you still don't have any visual of me, but that will be rectified shortly. So this is a question to Councillor Harper. The PM said recently, and I quote, "Too many homes have not been following procedures," effectively blaming the care home owners, their management and staff for the COVID-19 deaths that have occurred in care homes. Does the Chair of Adult Social Care and Public Health agree, and now Health and Wellbeing Board, agree with the comments of the Prime Minister, or should the Prime Minister apologise for the extreme offence that his comments caused to people working hard in the care sector?
Thank you. Councillor Harper.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Bosniak, for your question. Joyce, I know you're very passionate about care homes, and I know that you do visit them regularly. But virtually every day, there's a debate about what one politician or another of all parties at a national level who've said something on a particular matter. What did they mean? Whether it's been misinterpreted and how people are reacting to that. That is a matter for them to deal with, not for me. I'm happy explaining or answering for things I've said with regard to my responsibilities in Nottinghamshire, but I'm not here to judge, justify or clarify the comments of others. Councillor Bosniak has selected a quote from one sentence from the Prime Minister. I'll quote another sentence stating that throughout the pandemic, care homes have done a brilliant job under very difficult circumstances. As Chairman of Nottinghamshire County Council's Adult Social Care and Public Health Committee, that's the description I believe applies to the care homes across Nottinghamshire. And that's where my focus is, and happy to be quoted on that. I've spent a great deal of time during this COVID-19 outbreak focusing on the needs of the residents of this county, including those living and working in care homes. As members will be aware from the regular bulletins that have been circulated to them, there have been, very sadly, deaths in Nottinghamshire care homes due to COVID-19. And my deepest sympathy goes out to those families affected. I am proud, however, of the preventative work this authority has done with care home providers to keep the number of cases and deaths as low as we can. We've built our local response with partners to prevent outbreaks and respond rapidly when these occur, helped by increasing amounts of national support becoming available. Our care homes have been outstanding, supporting people who are ill, relatives who are stressed and bereaved, and making sure staff are confident in managing infection prevention. Since the start of the pandemic, Nottinghamshire County Council's Quality and Market Management Team, that's QMMT, have been working to support care homes in every way we can, as well as providing a daily bulletin updating them about guidance from central government. We've also backed them financially. Care home providers have received a set amount per bed at their home from Infection Control Grant Fund provided by central government, as well as being able to claim for additional costs from COVID-19 on a monthly basis. Following a local webinar, which was attended by almost 100 people, we also made a 5% payment of 2 weeks' fees to assist providers with their cash flow. This was in addition to the annual fee increase that we paid in April 2020. Members may wish to note that a number of local authorities have not had the same proactive approach to fees as we have in this county. We were especially concerned about infection in care homes and early on worked hard to supply personal protective equipment to providers free of charge when there was an issue sourcing supplies nationally. To date, we will still have a healthy supply of PPE and we make that available when it's needed. We also worked with health partners to support care homes to make sure they were well trained in infection control. The department have also worked with partners, including Public Health, through the Local Resilience Forum, commonly known as LRF, and that is a cell which is chaired by the Group Manager of QMMT. They've been able to recruit relief staff and deploy them to support a local care home that had a shortage of personnel following their staff group being swabbed for the virus. The staff team was able to support the service until their own staff were fit enough to return to work. We even had a contingency plan to be able to use the military should it be necessary by way of MACA, which means military response to a civil authority. There's currently a shortage of nurses in care homes, that's nationally. So to mitigate any such problem occurring locally, our officers worked with partners to establish a contingency plan, and thankfully that's not been necessary to date. Without exception, social care providers across the county have worked tirelessly to support people living in Nottinghamshire, whether that be in a residential or nursing home or in their own home environment. And we're very grateful to all of them. And that's the message coming out loud and clear from me on behalf of the members in my committee and this authority. It's a local message for local people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, it's me not unmuting. Councillor Bosniak, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Harper, for that very full answer. But you mentioned about the behaviour. I do have a question. You did mention about the behaviour of the Prime Minister. He's not just a politician, Tony. He's the Prime Minister.
Well, I think then if you acknowledge it's not part of your question, then can you leave it and ask the question?
Yeah. And I still think he should apologise for what he said. Because do you agree, Tony, that the delay in recognising the needs of the care sector and the conflicting advice from government has made the job of adult social care officers and care workers far more difficult, and that all those helping to keep vulnerable adults safe should be applauded and not insulted by our Prime Minister?
Councillor Harper.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Bosniak, and I am the first to applaud local people in this county. They've done a fantastic job. They've worked beyond the bounds. They've been working 24/7. Like I said to you, I'm not here to judge, justify or clarify the comments of others, but in relation to this county, they've done a fantastic job, and please quote me on it on behalf of my committee and behalf of this authority. Well done.
Yep, thank you. Moving on now, well, before I do, can I give you all a gentle reminder that to members that the meeting chat facility that you have on your screens is to assist with the smooth running of the meeting. It's not there to contribute to the debate because the public who are watching this can't see it. So a gentle reminder not to be using it. I'm also noticing very much, if we are to get all these questions in, can we sort of try and speed up some of the processes that we're doing? So the next question is from Councillor Girling, which is about the Nottinghamshire COVID-19 Community Fund. Councillor Cuts to reply. Councillor Girling.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, question is to the leader. Regarding the proactive Nottinghamshire COVID-19 Community Fund launched in March, would the leader of the council state the total number of bids received from the organisations in each district area, including voluntary organisations? Would she please list the total amount of money paid out in each district area and how many bids came from the county-wide organisation?
Councillor Cuts. I think you're still locked.
The current total number of applications received from each district area is as follows: Ashfield 46, Bassetlaw 48, Broxtowe 34, Gedling 35, Mansfield 37, Newton Sherwood 63 and Rushcliffe 48, and there were some outside Nottingham City. This amounts to 450 bids and a total of just over £2,007.72 million, that's including the city. All applications were gone through in a rigorous assessment process in line with the criteria of the fund, after which funding supported total £605,494 have been issued, and this figure includes £197,104 for funding for county-wide projects. In order to calculate the total amount of funding awarded to each district, the amounts awarded to the county-wide projects have been equally divided between the districts and the service being provided, and this amounts to Ashfield 93,125, Bassetlaw 92,201, Broxtowe 82,471, Gedling 59,172, Mansfield 73,537, Newton Sherwood 115,217, and Rushcliffe 89,771.
Thank you, Councillor Cutts. Councillor Girling, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, Chairman. Leader, could you, on behalf of my divisional area, Newton Sherwood, in effect, pass on my thanks to all the staff that administered that fund. I know some of the organisations, charities that put in for it, and how smoothly it went, and how much they appreciated the funds that they got. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cutts. Is there a response?
Well, I'm grateful for that, and I will make quite sure that is passed on to members of the staff who dealt with it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take the next three questions together, and that's Councillor Carr's, Councillor Brown's and Councillor Plant. First of all, then, Councillor Carr, can you ask the question that you started on before?
Lovely, thank you. Question to the Chairman of Communities and Place Committee. Nottinghamshire County Council was able to bid under the government's Emergency Active Travel Fund. The bids had to be ambitious for the reduction of carbon emissions by encouraging less motorised traffic and greater use of bicycles and walking. Given this information, will the Chair explain why, given our indicative allocation in Phase 1 was £573,000, did we only receive £263,250, i.e. 45.94%? 2. What plans are in place to identify projects to utilise the £2,039,000 Phase 2 monies? 3. What discussions have taken place with district and borough councils to identify projects? 4. What projects have been identified on a district-by-district basis, including the cost?
Thank you. Councillor Brown, would you ask your question?
Thank you, Chairman. Would the Chairman of Communities and Place Committee explain the reasons why Nottinghamshire County Council did not receive the maximum allocation from Tranche 1 of the Government's Emergency Active Travel Fund, and provide some context regarding how councils with similar transport and highways infrastructures fared with their bids? Would the Chairman further explain what the measures are being taken to secure as much funding as possible through Tranche 2, and what type of schemes we will be prioritising in broad terms? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Platt, your question, please.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Chair. I think, again, I will say that the fact that we've had 3 questions on this Emergency Active Travel Scheme is definitely testament to the importance residents have placed on it, particularly obviously during the COVID-19 crisis, when they were able to walk and to cycle happily and safely on obviously very quiet and practically traffic-free roads. So expectations were raised as to what could be achieved through this scheme, and sadly those expectations were somewhat dashed, hence my question. So does the Chair of the Communities and Place Committee appreciate the disappointment felt by many residents and community groups due to the fact that Nottinghamshire County Council received approximately half the amount they were eligible to bid for in the first tranche of the Department for Transport's Emergency Active Travel Scheme?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cotty to reply.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Councillors Brown, Carr and Plant for your questions. The Emergency Active Travel Fund is divided into two tranches. Tranche 1, with a total allocation of £45 million, is for temporary changes to the highway to be in place between 12 weeks and 1 year from receiving the funding. These changes are to be removed when
You seem to have frozen. Have we got any IT base of what we can do?
Hello, Chairman. Yes, we'll look into it immediately. I'm not sure if you want to move on to the
I'm going on to the next question then.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Rhodes, you have a question about the funding to cover the council's cost in relation to the COVID-19. Councillor Cutts to respond. Thank you.
Indeed, Chairman. Thank you very much. Given the increased, it's a question for Leader of the Council. Given the increased revenue deficit that Nottinghamshire County Council have incurred since this crisis began, and the Chancellor's assurance that all COVID-19 associated costs to local government would be met, can she demonstrate to members how much pressure she's been putting on her own government to ensure that this council's additional COVID-19 costs are covered?
Thank you. Councillor Cutts.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, the Leader of the Opposition, for another question. On the 6th of July, myself, the Deputy Leader and Chairman of the Finance and Major Contracts Committee, received a briefing from the Chief Executive and our Section 151 officer on the new financial challenges facing the Council as a direct result of coronavirus. We agree that the contents of the briefing should be shared with leaders of the opposition groups and that the information should then be published in the report on the Finance and Major Contracts Management Committee, which met on Monday this week. The report is available on the Nottinghamshire County Council website for all to read, but to surmise, the estimated additional cost responding to coronavirus crisis across all departments totals amount of £49.5 million, a figure that's likely to increase given the impact that COVID-19 is still ongoing. On that basis, and given the fortunate coincidence that the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government happens to be one of our own local MPs, I have taken the opportunity in my discussions with him to emphasise the pressure that we are under and to insist that the Treasury must honour its previous commitment to reimburse our councils for the cost of the COVID-19. I've also taken advantage of speaking to the other 6 Nottinghamshire MPs, Conservative MPs, and urged them to make the same case, and not just to their fellow politicians, but also to senior civil servants. I have been fully supportive of the lobby by the County Councils Network and the Local Government Association, whose members sensed that in mid-May that some of the messages coming out of the Treasury were being unequivocal than had previously been regarding COVID-19 funding support to councils. Regardless of political control, all council leaders heard the original message and acted upon it. We therefore absolutely are entitled to expect those commitments to be honoured, and I have not been remiss in rattling the cage of MHCLG or the Treasury to reinforce this message. The situation with COVID is constantly changing and developing, and the government is reviewing the delta returns it receives on the ongoing basis. Some councils have not helped their cause by inflating their cost projections, by including factors that should have not been included, and the Treasury is sifting through these claims to prove them beneficial in due course for those like ourselves who played it straight down the line. The current situation is that the Council has received a total of £37 million in 2 tranches of funding from government towards our additional costs and lost income. An initial tranche of £1.6 billion of the additional funding was announced in March 2020, of which the Nottinghamshire County Council share was £22.3 million. A second tranche of a further £1.6 billion was announced by government on the 20th of April, of which this council received £14.6 million. The government has also announced a further £600 million to support infection control in care homes. This council's share of which was £11.4 million, but this must be passported to care homes based on the government criteria and cannot be used for other funds or other additional costs. This distribution of the second main tranche of funding was determined on a per capita basis, with a split of 65-35 between county and district authorities, reflecting the current local government system in which we operate But this does compel me to point out that if we create a unitary council for Nottinghamshire, at least £27 million a year currently tied up in bureaucracy and the two-tier system would be released to spend on services. You cannot artificially separate the issue of the quantity of funding we receive from the issue of the system and structure which it is deployed. And this point holds true at any time, but even more so at the current time. On the 16th of July, Councillor Rhodes tweeted, and I comment, we need local councils working together for the benefit of our communities during these difficult times, rather than arguing about their own future structures and ignoring the needs of Nottinghamshire. Quite. First of all, this administration is not ignoring the needs of Nottinghamshire people, as evidenced by the amount of money we are currently spending on services to them. And frankly, Alan, you are capable of a better level of debate here. But more importantly, that tweet either betrays an astounding level of financial naivety or an incredibly cynical level of political expediency. And knowing you as I do, Alan, I know full well that you are not financially naive. Contrary to his claim, there has never ever been a more important time to review the structure of local government. Never ever been a more important time, because the crisis we find ourselves in, and every pound and every penny we have to count for the benefit of local communities in Nottinghamshire. Alan's perpetual go-to line is that we must press the government for more money. And at this moment, I don't disagree with him on that. But you do need to remember that whether the money comes from central government or local government taxation, it ultimately comes from exactly the same place, and that's the taxpayer's pocket. It's therefore incumbent upon this county council and the borough and district councils of Nottinghamshire to get together, to get behind local government reorganisation and save at least £27 million a year, which could be redirected in bureaucracy into services, making taxpayers' money go further, whether it's raised nationally or locally. The case has never been as strong before, but it's now irrefutable. And in the light of the new financial pressures that have emerged, and if Councillor Rhodes or any other colleagues refuse to acknowledge the reality, then I have to conclude that they are prioritising interests of others somewhat than the Nottinghamshire public and the services which they are elected to serve and which we are elected to protect. And I look forward to your support, Alan, on this, and not the constant complaining that we can't make any change to the system, because we can. It lies in the will of the councillors elected to this council.
You're muted, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Alan. Before I invite Alan to ask a supplementary question, can I just clarify with Councillor Martin? He's indicated he wishes to speak. Under this, there is no way that you can speak. Is there a particular problem that you have? No?
Are we asking David Martin?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay,
it's a point of clarification, Chair.
All right, your point is?
Can the leader please clarify that earlier on, Councillor Jackson alluded to the fact that we weren't getting any more money from the government, and now you're saying that we will.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Rhodes, please.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you to the leader for a response. It's strange, Kay, that you want to talk more about what I'm saying than what you're saying, and that perhaps tells its own story. And I do believe it's appallingly opportunistic for you to keep referring back to a little obsession
Councillor,
about
can I
unitary
again,
status rather than talking about the finances of the council. But my question, Chairman, is that in recognising the informal lobbying that Councillor Cook tells me she's been carried out, will she take the opportunity on behalf of this council to write to the Treasury to remind them of the problems that they are causing by reneging on their previous promise to do whatever it takes to help local authorities to tackle this crisis? Will she write on behalf of the council to the Treasury formally to ensure that they are fully aware of the impact of their reneging on their previous promise on the people of Nottinghamshire?
Councillor Coates.
I am constantly pressuring government to make quite sure we get sufficient funding to run our council services, and that is a constant pressure I will keep up. But this is a two-way street. This is a two-way street. Sorry, Alan, can't you hear me?
We're not answering the question. Were you right?
This is a two-way street. If we're asking government for more money, then we have to be very sure that every pound we spend in Nottinghamshire is spent as sparingly as possible, and that we don't buy lots and lots of extra bureaucracy, paying extra salaries out, because we can't justify doing that under the current circumstances. And if you want to consider about where funding is going to go, £27 million more a year to spend in this county would go a long way to helping the services of Nottinghamshire County Council. And I would have thought you'd have more loyalty to the people who elect you and less loyalty to your district council colleagues and being their mouthpiece than supporting the people of this county and making sure we spend their money as wisely as possible by doing it as easily as possible by having one council. And it's not a super council, it'll be one council for Nottinghamshire.
Chairman, it's outrageous that Councillor Cutts is being so offensive. I'm nobody's mouthpiece. I'm the leader of the Labour group in this council.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
You should apologise for that comment.
Point of order. Could I make it clear?
Just a moment, Mr. Councillor Carr. Let me deal with other people.
I'm nobody's mouthpiece.
Thank you. You've made the comment. It's up to the Councillor Cutts if she chooses to apologise to you. Councillor Martin, you've raised an issue there. I'm trying desperately to get the 3 questions in regarding the travel fund. I'm going to suggest then that Councillor Jackson responds to you to clarify the point you are making. Right, moving on then. Councillor Carr, your point.
Can I just come in very quickly? I want the monitoring officer to record that as a borough councillor and a county councillor, I am very unhappy with Councillor Cutts' remarks about Alan Rhodes being the mouthpiece of district and borough councillors. I think it was appalling.
Okay, well, that is noted, but there is a complaints process. Okay, I'm now going to move on because we now have Councillor John Cotty back.
Chair, it was the leader I asked the question of. The funding issue is
all right. We'll ask the leader to get you a response to that one. Councillor Cotty, would you like to continue with your response to Councillors Carr, Brown and Plant?
Thank you, Chairman. It was nothing personal. I did want to respond to it, so I've not had a computer problem till just now. So I will continue from where I started with Tranche 1, with its total allocation of £45 million, and that's for temporary changes for the highway to be in place between 12 weeks and a year, and these changes are to be removed when no longer required for social distancing, when travel levels return to pre-lockdown levels, or if they cause congestion or safety concerns on the network. And allocations for the first tranche were announced early in July, which through Nottinghamshire County Council received, as was said, £263,000 of the maximum 573 that was available. And as an authority, we were disappointed to receive only a proportion of the indicative allocation, but we were not alone in this. A total of 24 authorities received less than their indicative allocations, and of those 16 were counties. The amount received by Nottinghamshire was actually the average allocation for a shire county within the East Midlands. And the feedback we had from the department suggested that some parts of the Tranche 1 on their bid did not score sufficiently in terms of value for money and deliverability, which is perhaps not surprising that given the scale and complexity of the highway in such a large rural county, our programme to allocate the first round of funding was debated by the COVID-19 Resilience, Recovery and Renewal Committee last week, and includes a detailed breakdown of the schemes and costs included by district and town authorities who received less than they were individually allocated in Tranche 1. And we're welcome to reassess these proposals and put forward revised bids for those schemes as part of Tranche 2. Provided those proposals meet the criteria, we intend to work closely with the DfT to this effect. The guidance for Tranche 2 was only published on the 10th of July and includes prescriptive guidance
that will require significant work ahead of the deadline for submission on August the 7th. This tight timescale leaves insufficient time for detailed discussions with districts, but the County Council, as the highway authority, is after all responsible for the policy area. We recognise that some parts of our community have a strong desire for comprehensive schemes to improve cycling, but it will be challenging to offer, for example, segregated schemes that include cycling infrastructure improvements on a constrained rural network. It's also worth noting that £2.3 million will not provide extensive new facilities. Typically, national costs of cycle superhighways can cost up to £1 million per kilometre, and Nottinghamshire maintains 4,853 kilometres of road network. So nobody should be under the illusion that this will be a wish list for cyclists. I'm inclined to be just a little bit critical of the ministers, or is it the civil servants, I'm not sure, for being so ideological, prescriptive in their distribution of this funding. I've had first-hand experience of how enthusiastic the cycling lobby can be, and maybe they currently have the ear of government more than the walkers. But in my view, elected local authorities are better placed to judge the cycling and walking priorities in their particular area than Whitehall mandarins, especially at this time. We will make our Tranche 2 bid as strong as possible, but we will only bid for schemes that we have very strong evidence that these will be beneficial to significant numbers of walkers and cyclists and will contribute positively to our local infrastructure and economy. Whether public money is raised locally or nationally, this is not an administration that will spend public money just because it's there. We'll not build white elephant routes that would rarely be used, and I sincerely hope a good Conservative government would not expect us to do that at this time of local and national challenge. I do have a few other comments to add, and looking at the time, I'm going to shorten some parts of the later response that I've got. But just to let you know that the County Council cycling strategy and its delivery are detailed in the Nottinghamshire Local Transport Plan and the Cycling Strategy Delivery Plan. And during the last 5 years, the County Council has invested £4 million on cycling improvements, 3.6 million of this total in the last 3 years during the current administration. As well as small local improvements, the £4 million of investment has been delivered, improved cycle networks in the Arnold-Mapley area, Mansfield, Newark, Beeston, and lastly but not least, West Bridgford, to help facilitate and mitigate housing and employment development. An infrastructure plan to help identify future cycling infrastructure improvements. The County Council's working with other D2, N2 highway authorities and are developing a plan to help secure consistent joined up routes across the whole of the D2N area. And once the plan is completed, County Council members will identify their priorities for future cycling infrastructure investment for delivery in Nottinghamshire if and when funding comes through. Once again, County Council members will determine the priorities for this funding as part of a future Communities and Place Committee report. And as I've said, 2.3 million is not, however, going to deliver significant amounts of cycling improvements, only approximately 10 kilometres of cycle routes across the whole of the county based on the current costs. I recognise that cycling levels have increased during the lockdown period when compared to this time last year, and we'd like to sustain this. Cycling levels do, however, fluctuate significantly and are dependent on a number of factors. Thank you, Chairman. I will provide further updates in relation to both tranches of the Emergency Active Travel Fund at the appropriate time in the near future, and I will send out a more detailed response to all members who will be able to see the full briefing that I have. So with that, Chairman, that's my response. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can I now ask Councillor Carr to ask his supplementary? Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Carr?
Just very briefly, would the Chairman agree with me that ministers are responsible for the activities of their civil servants? And also, I find it incredible that their government, the Conservative government, are offering this council money, but you will only spend it if you think that it's value for money. surely that's the government's decision in giving you that money. And
that's more of a statement than a question. Thank you. Councillor Brown, would you like to give your supplementary?
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a supplementary. Just like to thank Councillor Cotty for his very comprehensive reply. Thank you.
Obliged to you. Councillor Plant, do you have a supplementary? You're muted. If you'd like to unblock.
Sorry, I may as well make use of the obviously short time we've got left. And in support of what Councillor Cotty said, I think it's very interesting. Sorry, Councillor Carr said that Councillor Cotty has such a negative view of his own government scheme. I think it's a real opportunity here for the administration to have a vision and ambition and innovation. And
Councillor, that's a statement. If you have a question, please.
I will now move on to my supplementary because I may as well ask it. I was given assurance by the Corporate Director of Place that the Tranche 2 bid, unlike Tranche 1, would go to the Community and Place Committee in September for consideration by the committee. But, as Councillor Cotty said, the bid has to go to the DFT by August the 7th. So I would like to ask the Chair of Community and Place how he will seek to facilitate comprehensive communication and engagement with members, with districts and boroughs, with appropriate cycling and walking organisation to ensure Nottinghamshire County Council receives our full allocation of over £2 million in Tranche 2 by submitting a plan that helps contribute to a joined-up network of key routes for cycling, walking from town centres and workplaces and schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cotty, I'm going to extend the 5 minutes to you. Can you cover the two issues or queries that's been put by Councillors Carr and Plant?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Westminster put out plans to improve cycling in areas. We receive the papers and we get on it. And they make it very prescriptive, which, and the short space of time we have to respond, it makes it difficult to do a proper consultation. We have a website which has been open for quite a long time for taking information from residents and groups on cycling. If you go onto the website and type in cycling, you'll get up with the policy I mentioned earlier on and what we're doing. And to go round all districts and district councillors and everybody else in the short space of time we've got to submit this is not practical. The department has many things to do, but I'm always willing to listen to people and try and help and support it. The next committee meeting is September. The government have said we need to reply by the 7th of August. So that's what we'll do. And I will try and make sure that officers and myself put in the best bids out there. But if anybody wants to write to me, or which plenty have done, all those are being taken into consideration. Thank you, Chairman. We can't hear you, Chairman.
I keep pressing it so many times, I'm not quite sure whether it's switched on or switched off. Thank you. That concludes the questions. I'm going to now call for us to take some lunch. It's nearly 1:45, so I'll give you till 1:15. But before I do, I'm going to call for the team to switch off the live feed, which takes 10 seconds, after which you can now depart.
HS2 is so important to the Midlands because we need to get our goods and services, our people to be where they need to be in the fastest possible time. We live in a fast-moving world with different economies moving at different paces. We can't afford to be left behind. If we get left behind, we'll continue to be a low-wage economy, and that's not fair. It's really important for the people who live here, and it's more important still for the generation to come.
Here is a video we've put together to thank all you carers for the fantastic work you do. Thank you.
We are so thankful for all our carers. It's not unnoticed how much you do. Out on the front line, always helping others. We are so very proud of you.
Through all the worries that we are facing,
you keep on going, striving through.
You help move hurdles, promote self-worth and growth.
Drive and focus in all you do.
All I'm grateful to all our caring. It's not unnoticed what you do. Out on the front line, giving your precious time, commitment and dedication to